The supply room smelled of industrial bleach and something darker, despair. Marcus pushed the door open, expecting stacked inventory or misplaced equipment. Instead, he found a man collapsed on an overturned bucket, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The fluorescent light overhead flickered weakly. Shadows pooled in the corners like secrets. Marcus froze in the doorway, his hand still on the handle. The man didn't look up. He clutched a photograph against his chest, bent forward as if praying. His grey uniform hung loose on thin shoulders. His name tag read Thomas. Marcus had seen crying before, boardrooms, courtrooms, his own mirror once. But this was different. This was the sound of a man who'd given up on being heard. "You okay?" Marcus's voice came out softer than intended. Thomas's head snapped up. His eyes, red-rimmed and wet, went wide with panic. He scrambled to stand, wiping his face with rough hands. "I'm sorry. I was just... I'll get back to work. Wait." Marcus stepped inside and let the door close. The room felt smaller now, intimate. "What happened?" Thomas shook his head rapidly. His hands trembled as he shoved the photograph into his pocket. "Nothing. I'm fine. Please don't tell Mr. Hollis you saw me." The name landed like a stone. Derek Hollis, assistant manager. Marcus had met him yesterday during orientation, all smiles and firm handshakes. But Thomas's fear said something else entirely. "I won't tell anyone," Marcus said. He meant it. Thomas nodded once, then hurried past him. The door clicked shut. Marcus stood alone in the buzzing, fluorescent glow, staring at the bucket where a man had wept. Something was very wrong in his store, and he was going to find out what. 48 hours earlier, Marcus Webb sat in his corner office on the 32nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline. His desk held a bronze plaque, CEO, Webb Retail Empire. 200 million in annual revenue, 43 stores across 12 states. Success looked good on paper. "The customer satisfaction scores are down again," his chief operating officer said, sliding a tablet across the mahogany desk. "Third quarter in a row. Flagship stores the worst." Marcus scrolled through complaint after complaint. Rude staff. Poor service. Something's off about that place. The flagship was where it all began. His first store. Opened 15 years ago with a loan and a dream. "Schedule a surprise inspection," Marcus said. "Already did. Twice. Everything looks perfect when corporate shows up." Marcus leaned back. His reflection stared from the dark window. A 42-year-old black man in a tailored navy suit. He'd built this empire from nothing. But somewhere between the first store and the 40th, he'd lost touch with the floor. His mother's voice echoed from memory. "You can't lead from a tower, baby. You gotta walk among the people." That night, Marcus made a decision. No entourage. No warnings. No executive privilege. He'd go undercover as a new hire, wear the uniform, work the shifts. He'd see what his executives couldn't or wouldn't show him. He traded his suit for worn jeans and a faded jacket, grew out his beard, wore his oldest sneakers. When he looked in the mirror, he saw someone his own security might ignore. Perfect. His alias was simple. Mike Johnson. Former warehouse worker. Clean background check. Needed a job. HR processed the application without a second glance. Marcus Webb, the CEO, disappeared. Mike Johnson, the worker, clocked in Monday morning at 6 a.m. sharp. The flagship store loomed before him. Glass and steel and promises. He'd built this. Now he'd see what it had become. The truth waited inside. The warehouse smelled like cardboard and sweat. Marcus, Mike now, hefted boxes alongside 20 other workers. His muscles remembered this labor from younger days. His hands remembered blisters. "Move faster, people." Derek Hollis's voice cut through the space like a whip. "We're not paying you to daydream." Marcus watched the assistant manager prowl between workstations. Derek was 30-something. Polo shirt perfectly pressed, smile sharp as broken glass. Workers shrank when he passed. Around 10 a.m., Marcus noticed the elderly janitor pushing a cleaning cart across the sales floor. Thomas moved slowly but thoroughly. mopping near the entrance. His movements held the precision of decades. Derek spotted him. "Thomas, get over here." The old man's shoulders tensed. He parked his cart and shuffled over. "Yes, Mr. Hollis?" "This floor's still dirty." Derek pointed at a spot that looked perfectly clean. "What am I paying you for?" "I just mopped that section." "Are you arguing with me?" Derek's voice rose. Nearby customers glanced over. Staff members slowed their work, watching. "Maybe you're too old for this job." Thomas's jaw tightened. He said nothing. "That's what I thought." Derek turned to address the gathered workers. "This is what happens when you don't meet standards. You want to end up like Thomas here, working until you're ancient because you never amounted to anything?" Nervous laughter rippled through the group. Marcus's hands curled into fists. His nails bit into his palms. Thomas kept his eyes on the floor. His face showed nothing, years of practice hiding pain. He returned to his cart without a word, shoulders curved like quotation marks around defeat. Derek clapped his hands. "Back to work, everyone. Can't remember. Performance matters here." Marcus watched Thomas disappear down the corridor. The old man's gait seemed heavier now, as if humiliation had weight. Around him, workers exchanged glances but said nothing. Fear had a smell, metallic and sour. Derek caught Marcus staring. "Something on your mind, new guy?" "No, sir." The words tasted like ash. "Good, keep it that way." Marcus returned to his boxes, but his mind stayed on Thomas. The slumped shoulders, the practiced silence, the way everyone watched but nobody intervened. This wasn't management. This was cruelty with a name tag, and it happened in his store. Under his company's name, Marcus took his lunch break on the loading dock. The city noise felt distant. Traffic, voices, life happening somewhere else. He unwrapped a sandwich he couldn't taste. Thomas's face haunted him. That empty expression. The kind you learned after too many beatings, emotional or otherwise. Marcus knew it. He'd seen it on his mother's face after 12-hour shifts, when bosses treated her like furniture. The fluorescent lights inside buzzed like accusations. "You built this. You allowed this." He'd spent 15 years climbing, building, expanding, more stores, more revenue, more success. Somewhere in that climb, he'd stopped checking what happened in the shadows. He'd trusted his managers, his systems, his brand values printed on break room posters. Respect, integrity, excellence. The words felt hollow now. His phone buzzed, a message from his executive assistant about quarterly projections. Marcus stared at the screen. Numbers and graphs, profit margins, stock prices. All of it built on the backs of people like Thomas, people his mother raised him to protect. She'd worked 3 jobs to keep him fed, cleaned offices where executives never learned her name, came home with stories about disrespect, delivered in polite voices. She'd taught him, the measure of a man isn't what he builds, it's who he lifts. Marcus had built an empire. But who had he lifted? He thought of Derek's sneer, the workers' nervous laughter, Thomas's silence. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was culture, and culture started at the top, with him. The sandwich sat heavy in his hands. Across the lot, a bird landed on a dumpster searching for scraps. Marcus watched it pick through garbage, finding nothing. He understood the feeling. Tomorrow he'd watch closer, listen harder. His mother's voice whispered, "You can't fix what you won't face, time to face it." Marcus was 7 when he understood humiliation. His mother came home early from her janitorial job, lipstick smeared from crying. Her supervisor had called her incompetent in front of the whole office for missing a trash can. She'd sat at their kitchen table, laminate peeling, chair wobbling, and taught him the lesson that built his empire. Baby dignity isn't given by others. It's recognized. When you grow up, you recognize it. In everyone, he'd promised. Cross his heart. He'd never be like that supervisor. 25 years later, Marcus opened his first store with that promise carved into the foundation. Fair wages, respectful treatment, opportunity for everyone. His mother cut the ribbon wearing her Sunday best, tears streaming down her face. "You did it, baby. You really did it." She died 2 years later, heart attack at 53. Too many years of stress and double shifts and swallowing disrespect. Marcus scattered her ashes behind the store, in the small garden he'd planted for employees. The company grew. First store became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became an empire. Marcus hired hundreds, created opportunities, changed lives. The business magazines called him inspirational, black entrepreneur, self-made success, rags to riches. But empires are hard to control. Managers managed managers. Systems ran systems. Marcus focused on growth, expansion, shareholder value. The things that kept empires standing. He forgot to check the foundation. Now standing in that warehouse wearing a stranger's name, Marcus felt the weight of his oversight. His mother's voice echoed, "Dignity isn't given. It's recognized." Had he stopped recognizing it? Had success made him blind? Thomas's face flashed in his memory. The old man was someone's son, maybe someone's father. He came to work every day, cleaned floors nobody thanked him for, endured disrespect from a manager Marcus's systems had hired and promoted. Derek Hollis worked for Marcus, which meant Derek's cruelty wore Marcus's name. The realization settled in his chest like a stone. He'd built something beautiful and let it rot from the inside. Success meant nothing if it stood on broken backs. His mother would be ashamed. Marcus wouldn't let that stand. Whatever it took, whoever he had to confront, he'd find the truth. And then he'd burn out the rot, starting with Derek Hollis. On his 3rd day, Marcus volunteered for inventory duty. Late shift, fewer people around. He needed to observe Derek without interruption. Around 8 p.m., Marcus restocked shelves near the manager's office. The door stood halfway open. Derek's voice drifted out laughing. Another manager, Brian from electronics, laughed with him. "I'm telling you, it's easy money," Derek said. "Thomas works 50 hours, I log 42. The old man never checks his pay stubs." Marcus froze. His hands tightened on a box of printer paper. "What about HR?" Brian asked. "Please. I bury any complaints that come through. Who's gonna believe some janitor over me? The guy's been here 20 years and never got promoted." "That tells you something." More laughter. Marcus's vision tunneled. Blood pounded in his ears. "How much you clearing?" Brian's voice held interest now. "Couple hundred a week from Thomas alone. More from the overnight stockers. They're all immigrants, scared to complain. It's basically free money. Smart. It's business." Derek's chair creaked. "This company doesn't pay us enough anyway. Webb's probably making millions while we scrape by. I'm just evening the scales." Marcus set the box down carefully. His hands shook with rage. He walked away before he did something that would blow his cover. In the bathroom, he splashed cold water on his face. The mirror showed a stranger, beard overgrown, eyes hard. This wasn't about customer satisfaction anymore. This was theft, systematic exploitation of the most vulnerable workers, people like his mother. Derek wasn't just cruel. He was a criminal hiding behind a polo shirt and a smile. And he'd been doing it for months, maybe years, right under corporate's nose, under Marcus's nose. Marcus pulled out his phone. His fingers hovered over his executive assistant's number. One call would end this. Derek fired by morning. Police involved. Justice swift. But something stopped him. One manager was bad. But Derek said he buried complaints in HR. That meant the rot went higher, deeper. Marcus needed to know how far. He pocketed his phone. Tomorrow he'd talk to Thomas. Earn his trust. Get the full story. Then he'd dismantle this piece by piece. The bathroom door opened. A worker entered, nodded at Marcus, disappeared into a stall. Marcus straightened his shoulders. Adjusted his name tag. Mike Johnson. He wasn't CEO right now. He was a witness. And witnesses gathered evidence before they testified. Derek Hollis had no idea what was coming. The next morning, Marcus found Thomas in the break room. The old man sat alone in the corner, eating something from a worn plastic container. His hand shook slightly as he lifted the fork. "Mind if I sit?" Marcus gestured to the empty chair. Thomas looked up, surprised. Workers didn't usually seek him out. "Sure, I'm Thomas. Mike." Marcus sat, opened his own lunch. "Been here long?" 23 years. Pride flickered in Thomas's voice, then faded. "Started when Mr. Webb opened this place." Marcus's chest tightened. Thomas had been here from the beginning. Must have seen a lot of changes. Too many. Thomas stared at his food. Used to be different. Mr. Webb, the owner, he cared about people. Or we thought he did. The words cut deep. Marcus kept his expression neutral. "What changed?" Thomas shrugged. "Company got big. Corporate stopped visiting. Managers like Derek took over." He paused. "You seem nice, Mike. Advice? Keep your head down. Don't make waves. What if someone's treating you wrong?" Thomas's laugh was bitter. "Then you take it, because complaining just makes it worse." He glanced toward the door, checking for Derek. "I tried once. Filed a complaint with HR about missed overtime. Next week my hours got cut." Message received. Marcus leaned forward. "That's not right." "Right doesn't matter when you need the paycheck." Thomas's voice dropped to a whisper. "My wife's sick. Cancer. The insurance from this job is all we've got. I complain I lose everything." The weight of it landed like a punch. Thomas wasn't silent because he was weak. He was silent because he was trapped. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. He meant it more than Thomas could know. "Don't be sorry. Just be careful." Thomas stood, collecting his container. "Derek's watching you." "I can tell. He doesn't like workers who think too much." Marcus watched him shuffle away. The old man's shoulders carried more than age. They carried impossible choices. Stay silent and survive. Speak up and lose everything. It was a system designed to protect predators. And Marcus had built it without realizing. Not anymore. That night, Marcus returned to the store after closing. The building was dark except for security lights. He used his master key, hidden in his wallet, disguised as a gym membership card. He headed for the supply room. Something drew him there. The place where he'd first found Thomas. The door was ajar. Light spilled out. Marcus heard crying again. Softer this time, like the sound had worn itself out. He pushed the door open. Thomas sat on the same bucket, holding the same photograph. Tears tracked down his weathered face. His shoulders shook with exhaustion. "Thomas," Marcus stepped inside. "Talk to me." The old man looked up. Recognition flickered. Mike from lunch. He tried to wipe his face but gave up. "You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. It's almost midnight." Marcus crouched beside him. "What's going on?" Thomas stared at the photograph. It showed a young woman in a graduation gown, smiling brilliantly. "My daughter, Jasmine, she died 3 years ago. Car accident. I'm so sorry. She wanted to be a teacher." Thomas's voice cracked. "Smart, beautiful, kind. Everything I'm not? Don't say that, it's true." Thomas looked at Marcus. His eyes held decades of defeat. "I'm 67 years old. I clean floors for minimum wage while Derek steals my overtime. My wife's dying. My daughter's gone. And I can't even stand up for myself because I'm too afraid." The words spilled out like a confession. Marcus felt each one. "Derek threatened me last week," Thomas continued. "Said if I make any more trouble, he'll fire me. Told me I'm replaceable. That corporate doesn't care about janitors." Marcus's jaw clenched. "He said that?" "He's right, though." Thomas folded the photograph carefully. "People like me don't matter. We're invisible. We just exist until we don't." Silence filled the supply room. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Marcus saw everything clearly now. Not just Derek's theft, but the systematic dehumanization. The way his company had forgotten the people who kept it running. People like Thomas. "Like his mother, you matter," Marcus said. His voice was steady. "And what's happening to you, it's going to stop." Thomas shook his head. "You can't fix this. Nobody can. Watch me." Marcus stood. His mind raced through options, plans, evidence. He needed documentation, proof that couldn't be buried or denied. Thomas, I need to ask you something. How many other workers is Derek stealing from? Thomas blinked. What? I heard him. Bragging about it. He's taking your overtime, skimming from immigrant workers. I need names, Mike, no. You'll get yourself fired, or just trust me. Marcus met his eyes. Please. Something in Marcus's tone made Thomas pause. The old man studied him for a long moment. Then slowly he began naming names. Night shift stalkers, weekend crew, people too scared or too vulnerable to fight back. 12 names total. Marcus memorized every one. Tomorrow, he'd access the payroll systems from his executive account. He'd pull every timesheet, every complaint Derek had buried. He'd build a case so airtight that not even corporate lawyers could dismiss it. But first, he needed Thomas to trust him completely. What if I told you, Marcus said carefully, that things are about to change? Really change? Thomas's expression held no hope. I'd say you're dreaming. Then watch the dream come true. Marcus headed for the door, then paused. Get some rest. And Thomas? Hold on to that photograph. Your daughter would be proud of you. He left before Thomas could respond. Outside, Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed his head of security. I need access to surveillance footage. Every camera in the flagship store. Last 6 months, sir. It's midnight. Now. By morning, Marcus would have everything, evidence, documentation, proof that couldn't be denied. And then he'd burn Derek Hollis's world to the ground. The rot ended tomorrow. Marcus sat in his car in the empty parking lot. 10 a.m. The store loomed behind him, dark, silent, full of secrets. His phone screen glowed with emails from corporate. Expansion proposals. Investor meetings. Stock performance updates. The machine of success grinding forward, indifferent to the human cost. He thought about Thomas's face. That empty expression when he said people like me don't matter. 23 years of loyalty, rewarded with theft and humiliation. Marcus had built this company to be different, to honor his mother's sacrifice, to create dignity where she'd found none. Instead, he'd built another machine that chewed up people like her, like Thomas. The photograph of Thomas's daughter haunted him. That bright smile full of promise, gone now. And her father spent his nights crying in a supply room, too broken to fight back. Marcus's mother had raised him better than this. She'd worked herself to death so he could succeed. And what had he done with that success? Lost himself in quarterly reports and expansion plans while people suffered in his name. The disconnect nauseated him. He was Marcus Webb, powerful, wealthy, respected. But what did any of it mean if his company destroyed the people it employed? His reflection stared back from the dark window. Beard overgrown, eyes tired. He barely recognized himself. Maybe that was fitting. He'd lost sight of who he was somewhere between the first store and the empire. His mother's voice whispered from memory. You can't lead from a tower, baby. She was right. He'd climbed too high, looked away too long. And people like Thomas had paid the price. Not anymore. Tomorrow everything changed. He'd face Derek, expose the rot, burn it out root and branch no matter the cost. But tonight, alone in his car at 2 a.m., Marcus felt the full weight of his failure. Success wasn't measured in stores opened or revenue generated. It was measured in dignity preserved. In people lifted. He'd forgotten that. But Thomas's tears had reminded him. Marcus started the engine. Tomorrow would be brutal. Confrontations, revelations, pain. But pain meant healing. And his company needed to heal, starting with the man in the supply room who'd lost hope. At 6 a.m., Marcus sat in his real office downtown. The sunrise painted the city in shades of gold. His computer screens glowed with evidence. 6 months of surveillance footage. Payroll records for 12 employees. HR complaints, 14 of them, all filed against Derek Hollis. All marked resolved without action. All buried by Derek himself, who had administrator access he shouldn't have possessed. Marcus's head of security had worked through the night-pulling data. Now spreadsheets told the story. Systematic wage theft totaling $47,000. Overtime logged but never paid. Hours shaved from timesheets. Bonuses promised but pocketed. Derek had been stealing for 2 years. And HR had given him the tools to cover it up. Marcus picked up his phone and called his chief human resources officer. "We need to talk, now." 30 minutes later, Sandra Martinez sat across from his desk. She'd been with the company for 8 years. Marcus had always trusted her. "Tell me about Derek Hollis," Marcus said. Sandra's face went pale. "What about him?" "I want to know how he got administrator access to HR systems. And I want to know why 14 complaints against him were closed without investigation." I don't know what you're talking about." Marcus turned his monitor toward her. "Don't lie to me, Sandra." Her hands trembled. "He said it came from you, that you wanted managers to have more autonomy. That complaints were slowing down operations. I never said that." He had an email with your signature, forged. Marcus's voice was ice. "Derek Hollis has been stealing from our most vulnerable employees for 2 years, and you gave him the access to do it." Sandra's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know." "I swear I didn't know." Marcus studied her. He'd built his career on reading people. Sandra was incompetent, not malicious. She'd been manipulated. "You're suspended pending investigation. Clean out your desk." She left without a word. Marcus added her name to the list of people who'd failed Thomas. Who'd failed all 12 victims. The list included his own name. He spent the next hour preparing. He contacted the company's law firm. Evidence needed to be documented properly. He called the payroll department. Back wages needed to be calculated. He messaged his executive team. Mandatory meeting at noon. Then he did the hardest thing. He called Thomas. "Hello?" The old man's voice was hesitant. "Thomas, it's Mike from work. I need you to come to the store at 11 a.m. main floor. Trust me. Mike, I'm off today, but please, just trust me." A long pause. "Okay." Marcus hung up. His hands were steady now. The plan was simple. Gather everyone. Present the evidence. Let Thomas speak his truth in front of witnesses who couldn't ignore it. Let the victims be seen. His mother had taught him that dignity wasn't given. It was recognized. Today he'd make sure Thomas was recognized. By everyone, Derek Hollis would answer for every stolen dollar. Every buried complaint. Every moment of cruelty. The rot ended today, in front of the whole store. Marcus stood and straightened his tie. Time to stop being Mike Johnson. Time to be the CEO his mother raised him to be. At 11 a.m., Marcus walked into his flagship store, not through the employee entrance but through the front doors. He wore his tailored navy suit, his executive badge visible. His beard was trimmed, his shoulders squared. Workers stopped mid-task. Customers glanced over. Derek Hollis looked up from the manager's station, confused. "Everyone," Marcus's voice carried across the sales floor. "I need you on the main floor now. This is not optional." Staff members gathered slowly. Confusion rippled through them. Who was this man in the suit? Why did he sound like he owned the place? Because he did. Thomas arrived through the side door, still in street clothes. He saw Marcus and froze. Recognition dawned slowly. Mike from the warehouse, but different. Transformed. Derek approached, irritation on his face. "Sir, I don't know who you are, but you can't just—" "My name is Marcus Webb." His voice cut through the space like thunder. "I own this company." "And you're fired," gasps erupted. Workers exchanged shocked looks. Derek's face went from irritation to panic to rage in seconds. "You can't be. This is some kind of joke." "No joke." Marcus gestured to his security team entering through the front. "For the past week, I've been working here undercover as Mike Johnson. I've seen everything, Derek, and I've documented it." A large screen descended from the ceiling, usually used for promotional videos. Now it displayed spreadsheets, payroll records, timestamps, the evidence Marcus had gathered. Derek Hollis has been stealing wages from 12 employees for 2 years. Marcus's voice remained calm, factual. He's taken $47,000 through falsified timesheets. He's buried 14 HR complaints. He's created a culture of fear and exploitation. The screen changed to surveillance footage, Derek bragging to Brian about easy money. The audio played clearly. Workers' faces shifted from shock to anger. Derek backed toward the door. This is entrapment. You can't. I can. Marcus turned to Thomas, who stood at the edge of the crowd. Thomas, would you come up here, please? The old man hesitated. Every eye turned to him. He walked forward slowly, shoulders curved with decades of shrinking himself. Marcus handed him a microphone. Tell them what happened to you. Thomas's hands shook. He looked at the microphone, then at Marcus, then at the gathered crowd. His voice came out as a whisper. I've worked here 23 years. Louder, Marcus said gently. They need to hear you. Thomas straightened slightly. His voice grew stronger. I've worked here 23 years. I loved this job. I believed in this company. But Derek Hollis stole my overtime for months. He threatened to fire me if I complained. He called me worthless in front of customers. Silence filled the store. Thomas's voice cracked but didn't break. My wife has cancer. The insurance from this job keeps her alive. I stayed silent because I was scared. Because people like me, we don't get justice. We just survive. He looked at Derek, but I'm done being silent. The crowd erupted. Not in laughter this time. In applause. In support. Workers began stepping forward one by one. He stole from me too, a young woman said. Maria, overnight stalker. Me too, said Carlos, another victim Marcus had identified. One by one, voices rose. The silence broke. The fear cracked. Marcus watched as his employees found their courage. Together. Derek tried to speak. These people are lying. Enough. Marcus nodded to security. Derek Hollis, you're terminated immediately. Security will escort you out. Police have been contacted regarding the wage theft. You'll be hearing from our attorneys. 2 security guards took Derek's arms. He struggled, shouting about lawyers and wrongful termination. But his voice faded as they led him away. The store fell silent again. Marcus turned to face his employees, all of them. I failed you. I built this company on principles I stopped enforcing. I got comfortable at the top, while people like Thomas suffered at the bottom. That ends today, he gestured to Thomas. Thomas has been promoted. His new role is Employee Dignity Officer. He'll report directly to me. Every complaint will be heard. Every voice will matter. And anyone who creates a culture of fear will answer to him. And to me. Thomas's eyes went wide. Tears spilled down his cheeks, different tears now. Not defeat. Not despair. Something else entirely, hope. The crowd erupted in applause again, louder this time. Marcus pulled Thomas into an embrace. The old man's shoulders shook. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. No, Marcus said. Thank you for reminding me why I started this. 3 weeks later, Thomas walked into the flagship store wearing a different uniform. Not grey coveralls. A navy polo with gold embroidery. Employee Dignity Officer. His office was small but real. A desk, a computer, a phone with a direct line to Marcus Webb. On the wall hung a photograph. Jasmine in her graduation gown, smiling brilliantly. The back wages had arrived. 47,000 divided among 12 victims. Thomas's share came with interest and a formal apology. He'd paid his wife's medical bills. The weight that had crushed him for years lifted slightly, but more than money, something else had changed. Workers greeted him now, not with pity or awkwardness, but with respect. They knew his story. They'd seen him speak his truth. He'd become a symbol. Marcus visited weekly, never announced. He'd walk the floors in his suit, talking to employees by name, learning their struggles, fixing broken systems. The tower office downtown remained, but he spent more time on the ground now where leaders belonged. The company had changed too. Anonymous complaint systems installed. Pay audits quarterly. Mandatory respect training for all managers. 3 more Derek Hollises had been discovered at other locations. All terminated, all prosecuted. The rot burned out piece by piece. Today, Thomas facilitated a meeting with night shift workers. They shared concerns about scheduling. He listened, took notes, promised action. And when he made promises now, people believed him. After the meeting, he sat in his office and looked at Jasmine's photograph. "I stood up, baby," he whispered. Finally stood up. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Thank you for your courage. Your mother would be proud." "Mine too," Thomas smiled. The first genuine smile in years. He thought about dignity, not given but recognized. He'd spent 23 years invisible. Then one man had seen him crying in a supply room and refused to look away. That had made all the difference. Outside his window, the sun set over the parking lot. The same lot where Marcus had sat at 2 a.m., confronting his failures. The same store where Thomas had wept and suffered. Now it felt different, lighter, like a wound finally healing. Thomas gathered his things and headed home. His wife was waiting, stronger now, fighting still. He had stories to tell her. About speaking up. About being heard, about mattering. The automatic doors opened as he left. Cool evening air washed over him. He stood taller now. His shoulders no longer curved with shame. Dignity wasn't given. But when someone recognized it, when they really saw you, it could transform everything. Thomas walked into the evening. Behind him, the store's lights glowed warm against the darkening sky. A place rebuilt on the foundation it should have had from the start. Respect, real respect. For everyone. Marcus stood in the supply room where it all began. The bucket was gone, replaced with a small plaque on the wall. Dignity recognized here. He'd commissioned it after Thomas's promotion. A reminder. Not for employees, for himself. 3 months had passed since that night. The company had transformed. Profits dipped slightly during the restructuring. Firings, back wages, system overhauls cost money. Shareholders complained. Marcus didn't care. Some things mattered more than quarterly earnings. His phone buzzed. Thomas sending a photo. His wife smiling from a hospital bed. The cancer treatments were working. The caption read, "She's going to make it." "Thank you." Marcus's eyes burned. He typed back, "She's a fighter." "Like you." He thought about his mother often now. About her tired face after 12-hour shifts. About the lessons she'd taught in their small kitchen. About the promise he'd made to recognize dignity in everyone. He'd broken that promise. Let success blind him. Built an empire on the backs of people he'd stopped seeing. But Thomas had saved him. A crying man in a supply room, holding a photograph of his dead daughter, had shown Marcus what he'd lost. Had reminded him why he started, not for profit, not for growth, for people. The ones society made invisible, the janitors and stockers and overnight workers who kept the world running while everyone else slept, the ones his mother had been. Marcus traced the plaque's engraved words. Dignity recognized here. It was a vow, one he'd keep this time, not from a tower but from the ground, walking the floors, learning names, listening to voices that had been silenced. The true measure of success wasn't what you built. It was who you lifted, who you saw when others looked away, who you fought for when they couldn't fight for themselves. His mother had known that. Thomas had reminded him. And now Marcus would spend the rest of his career honoring both of them. He turned off the light and left the supply room. The store hummed with evening activity. Customers browsing. Employees working. A system rebuilt on dignity. As he walked toward the exit, Marcus passed a young woman mopping the floor. She looked up, started to step aside. "Don't move," Marcus said. "You're doing great work." "What's your name?" She blinked, surprised. "Rosa, sir." "Thank you, Rosa, for everything you do." Her face lit up. That simple recognition, being seen, transformed her expression. Marcus understood its power now. He stepped into the evening. The city stretched before him, full of people working invisible jobs, people who deserved to be recognized, to matter. Marcus Webb had built an empire once. Now he was rebuilding it, not on profit margins but on the only foundation that lasted: human dignity. Recognized, protected, honored, because in the end that was the only success that mattered.